We talked to theme park writer, podcaster and historian Jim Hill about what's coming at Universal Orlando Resort in 2018 and beyond on episode 282 of the Unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. Hey everyone, I'm your host Lee. Welcome to, this is actually our first officially recorded episode of 2018.
It is.
Last week's was recorded before Christmas. So I am joined by Tracy.
Hello.
And by my good friends Darren.
What's up, Internet?
And Chris, making the four of us the first time all four of us have been on as official host of the podcast.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Chris. And of course, as you heard in the little intro there, we are joined once again by Jim. At this point, you've got to be the guest we've had on the most amount of time since we started at this point.
Certainly.
Well, I keep telling you guys to keep the back door locked, but
You do.
don't listen.
I know.
No,
We're going to have to put traps down.
That's right. That's it exactly.
Seth's pushing you a close one at this
Oh.
point, but I'm not quite sure who's been on the most as like official interview points.
Well, I'll have to speak with his wife, Genevieve, and make sure she locks him in the attic again. Lovely woman, by the way, Genevieve.
Yes. So, Jim, busy year last year and then tons coming. I know you said you wanted to start off kind of looking back at last year, how that's going to set up, things are coming, so...
Well, there's so many pieces that got moved around the board this time. I think it's important to look back at 17 to understand what's coming in 18, 19, and 20. In fact, oddly enough, some important things that impact Orlando happened on the other side of the globe. I mean, for example, back on June 8th of last year, they had the groundbreaking at Universal Studios Japan for Super Nintendo World.
And that little thing they did was awesome, by the way. It was so cool.
It was. But again, to give you some idea, they're pretty straightforward about the fact that even if they broke ground in 2017, that's not supposed to be up and running till 2020 in time for the Summer Olympics in Tokyo that year. But I have to assume that that what they mean by that is it will soft open long before then, and there'll be some sort of great reveal prior to that. But anyway, all right, let's just start at the beginning. So, tail end of, 2016, December 31st, Universal closes Wet n Wild. And, then we jump ahead a month, and February 1st, they're pulling permits for what's known as Project 927, Phase 2. And that's the Aventura Hotel, the 600-room, 16-story hotel that's being built next to Low Sapphire Falls, and that's not supposed to open till August of 2018.
It looks pretty well underway, to be honest, at the moment as well.
It does. But what's intriguing about so much of what Universal is doing right now is that that they are really ramping up the number of rooms that they think of as on site. I mean, I'm sure you saw the announcement. What was that? November of this year, about the two hotels that are being built on top of the old Wet n Wild site.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's once again Universal Resort teaming up with Lowe's, and that's going to be one hotel that has 2,050 rooms, and the other one across the way is going to have 750 rooms.
And not a single vending machine.
Well, this is probably very true. And when all those rooms come online, that's summer of 2019, by the way. That's 9,000 rooms that are in the vicinity.
Are they being classed as on site then, Jim? Those ones?
Well, that right now the only piece of language that they've given us about these two hotels is they're being referred to as value driven, which I'm wondering how one makes the distinction between value driven and Cabana Bay.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the language they use to describe the rooms at those hotels?
Is it
Do
prime?
you guys remember?
Is it prime value? They call.
Prime Value, yes.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so what does value driven mean? I mean, it's we're in rooms made out of the finest cardboard.
Site adjacent.
Okay, March 2nd of 2017, we had our soft opening of Race Through New York with Jimmy Fallon. What you guys have experienced that ride now? What's your take on it?
Darren, Chris.
It's okay.
People eater.
Okay, that's the sort of tepid enthusiasm I expected. I mean, it's a wonderful queue and an okay ride. I mean, it just, in fact, what's kind of ironic is when that attraction was put in production, The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon was the #1 show in late night here in the States. And by the time it opened, thanks to the inauguration of President Trump, it's now many nights a distant third. I mean, Jimmy was the one host who didn't go after the president and kind of bit him in the butt. And speaking of things where they were trying to put butts in chairs, April of last year, we saw the Caribbean Carnival dinner show debut at Lowe's Sapphire Falls. Any of you guys try that?
No, we've had a couple of listeners get in touch who've tried it and said it was the better of the two between that and the luau.
Wow, really? Oof.
It's on the list.
Okay, because Angela Ragno and I went, and it was, I think they used the show to break prisoners at Guantanamo.
Wow.
Just really, it's one of these things. You're eating bad Caribbean food out of the steam table, and you're watching performers on stage, and it's like, have you ever actually been to an island? All right,
Now it's off the list.
I'm not talking Long Island. Just something away from the land. It was just bad show, bad
Right.
show.
Oh no.
But anyway, day after that opens, we get the grand opening of Race to New York with Jimmy Fallon, which, as we mentioned, amazing queue, and fun to sit there at those tables and do things. And I have to tell you, whoever plays hashtag the panda deserves a medal, because have you seen when he gets tortured by the guests and they make him dance until he collapses?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, my concern is that they then take, well, that was fun. Let's go out and do that to Shrek.
Yeah, we can only hope.
All right. Moving ahead to May, out ahead of the opening of Volcano Bay, Universal updates its mobile app so it can tie in the Tapu Tapu system, which didn't work. That's. Has anybody been to Volcano Bay,
Chris,
recently? Yes. Is it working any better?
It's working a lot better than when it first opened up. I remember when we went initially, they were comping tons of food because it was not working.
Okay.
But it's gotten a lot better.
We actually did a roundtable with Chris and 3 other listeners who had very differing experiences. And Jane, the girl who was on there with us, went with her husband and her children, and they had a horrendous time. The lines for all the food kiosks were that bad that she had. Chris, can you remember how old the kids were? They were fairly young, weren't they?
They're all 10 and under. Yep.
They never got a thing to eat all day because the lines for all the restaurants were that busy.
Wow. And the weird thing is that I want to say 6 weeks after the water park opened, they radically simplified the menu for a lot of the restaurants there. I mean, I remember Steve Jason was so proud of, how they were going to be serving sushi and, a variety of pizzas and that sort of thing. And he did not want, he made a point of saying, I don't want water park food. And 6 weeks in, it's like, hey, we're serving water park food. I'm sorry that their ambitious plans for it didn't quite work out, but I'm honestly glad to hear that, 6 at least, it seems to be operating better.
Yeah. I was actually talking to a friend of mine, Andy, And he was asking me about it, and he said that, like, he was saying that he only ever hears negative things about it. People only ever seem to talk about the bad things, because he said if anyone talked about how great the park was and how it's all worth it, I'd be tempted to go, but it just sounds like any water park except more crowded and annoying. So I have no desire to go. He said, like, when Hogsmeade or Diagon Alley opened, you'd hear it's packed and it's insane and it's expensive, but it's worth going. Which he's just not hearing with Volcano Bay. All he's hearing are all the problems. And it's true. I mean, we've done it on the show, that you just tend to focus on that side of it, even though, Chris, like you'll say, the park itself is gorgeous.
Yeah. It is. All right, well, let's the push on here. Okay, so Volcano Bay officially opens May 25th, and we've talked about that. June 1st, as an upside, we got the two towers at Universal Cabana Bay opened, which have a spectacular view of the water park that was having issues. And with these 400 rooms coming online, Cabana Bay now had 2,200 rooms right there on site. Anyway, again, pushing further into June, we talked about the Super Nintendo groundbreaking in Japan. About the same time, we did see concept art leak out for the Nintendo project that was supposed to be built at Universal Studios Florida. I'm sure you guys got to eyeball this at some point.
Yes.
Peach's Castle and the racing ride and that sort of thing. You've probably since heard that all crammed into one land has fallen off the table.
Okay.
Let's see. How can I say this without getting myself in trouble here? Universal and Nintendo decided, at least when it comes to Florida, that they have far bigger plans in mind.
Oh, yes.
And whether it's the Super Mario Brothers movie that Illuminations Entertainment, the folks who bring us Despicable Me and the Minions movies, what they're going to make. They're now thinking, rather than cramming all sorts of rides into one land, that the new plan seems to be individual lands for individual games, and that they are hammering away at that take on it. So hopefully we'll learn more in 2019. I guess we're going to get our first taste of this, so to speak. In fact, I'm hearing Fast and Furious Supercharged are actually going to take advantage of that window when they have the press in to talk about this.
Okay.
This was also a big year for Harry Potter. We saw a number of things. I mean, for example, the Christmas time in the Wizarding World. But the interesting thing is that the projection show that we saw introduced, the Holiday Lights at Hogwarts Castle, that actually, a version of the show debuted out in Hollywood. It was called The Nighttime Lights at Hogwarts Castle. Was done at that park first. But they had horrible operation issues with that, largely because, unlike Florida, their Hogwarts is basically a dead end. I mean, people walk straight into the castle, and that was the prime viewing spot for the show. And they had Potter fans show up, 4 and 5 hours in advance and stake out a spot, and then they wouldn't move until the park closed that night. So, but what are you going to do? I mean, that's they bought the robes, and that they're the prime customers, and they're the ones who, then went online and evangelized for the show.
Yeah, I know we spoke to Mike Aiello, Tracy and I, about the show for the podcast a few weeks before Christmas. He was saying that the original plan for the one in Orlando was to be 2 separate shows. So it would have been all the stuff. It was all the stuff prior to the Weasley Brothers would have been one show, and then the Weasley Brothers stuff would have been a separate show, but they were worried that people would camp out for the first one and then stay for the second one. So they decided to merge it all into one show so people would watch and move on, watch and move on. So you'd get a constant flow through Hogsmeade.
Yeah, I mean, from an operational point of view, that's perfectly understandable. But face it, that they are dealing with some size constraints. Over especially at islands, which of course is why we saw Dragon Challenge close on September 4th of this year, and they were flat out about they are going to be getting a brand new Potter themed attraction that'll be opening at that park in 2019, but more to the point, they get those 6 acres. The land that Dueling Dragons Dragon Challenge sat on gives them a place to put people, and they're very much looking forward to that. That it's stepping away from all of the space that the previous racing coaster occupied and putting a ride in there that'll give them a lot more space. And as for a theme, just get ready to explore the Forbidden Forest. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Yeah. We were hearing that it was going to be very similar to the Arthur and the Invisibles attraction over at Europa Park, which I know it's a Mac-powered coaster, which is the same as the How to Train Your Dragon one over at Motion Gate Dubai.
Okay, October 8th, 2017, we saw Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time close at Universal Florida.
Boo.
Again, when was the last time you guys were in that attraction?
Well, we haven't been over since 2015, and we did it then. That was the last time we did it. But
I did it just to, get a ride in before they close it out.
Yeah, before Horror Nights.
What did you think? I mean, it had been a while since you were in there, because when I did it, I was kind of startled at how long the attraction was. I mean, what was it, 22, 25 minutes?
Yeah, it's a long one.
And then, it was just kind of by modern theme park standards that it was as violent as it was, the firing the guns over the audience and that sort of thing. There was this little kid in front of me who I think is probably still in therapy. On the other hand, if you are a Terminator 2 3D fan, the Universal Studios Japan version is still open. The Hollywood
I need to
version,
go there. I'm a huge fan of it, and I think to me it's the quintessential Universal attraction. It does sort of straddle that cusp of theme park attraction that's not necessarily entirely family friendly, and that to me is Universal.
Well, the weird part of it is that now that James Cameron is basically, thanks to the Fox acquisition, a Disney employee, it's going to be interesting to see. And remember, Terminator actually was released by Fox. So it'll be interesting to see further on down the line, because that they are talking now about a new set of Terminator. One wonders if, Terminator will, disappear from Universal and rise over at Disney.
No, I
Hollywood
can't see
Studios,
that.
I guess you could see it there.
Okay. Okay, October 10th, we got a kind of a surprise that the Universal revealed that there's a new nighttime show in the works for Universal Studios Florida. We weren't given an opening date for this new show, but it is going to replace the Cinematic Spectacular, which has been around since 2012. And again, that this is Mike Aiello's first kind of projection show, and he told all sorts of wonderful stories about getting to go into the Universal Vault, the selective footage, and that sort of thing. And to be honest, I'll miss it. It's a great show. But again, looking ahead to Universal's future, October 26th of this year, the company announced that it had bought 101 acres of land up on Sand Lake Road for $27.5 million, which, with the 475 acres that they bought in December of 2015 for $130 million, they're now up by the convention center. They have 570 acres of land to do some pretty amazing stuff with.
And it's funny how they've been very quiet. Like, it's come out, but they've not talked about it at all.
Well, again, there was an original plan, and they did not anticipate that this 101 acres, which gives them frontage and more to the point, access to the site, getting cars in and out on Sand Lake. this really gives them a chance to do something impressive with this piece of land, so that they're going back and sort of revisiting their plans. And remember, again, as we talked about, with Nintendo suddenly being, individual games being individual lands rather than just individual rides. Be prepared for something really spectacular up by the convention center. But again, we're talking, the 2020s at the earliest.
Doesn't listening to the crew at UUOP every week make you wish that you were actually at Universal Orlando Resort? Well, stop wishing and start doing. Mouse and Muggle Travel Company is the perfect place to begin. Their team of concierge-level travel planners will help you every step of the way. And for you Muggles who also love the mouse, their team of experts specialize in Disney destinations too. And the best part of all, their services are free to you. So, if you're ready to plan your next Disney or Universal vacation, let Mouse and Muggle Travel Company do all the work for you. Just go to mouseandmuggle.com and fill out a no-obligation quote request. Or send an email to info@mouseandmuggle.com. And remember, whether you're a mouse or a muggle, Mouse and Muggle Travel Company can help make your next vacation simply magical.
And again, as we slide into November, we have Universal revealing that Fast and Furious Supercharged, just like Race to New York, is going to have a virtual queue, which, and for those of you who've been out to Hollywood and sort of experienced the Fast and Furious finale of the tram tour, they finally released some art of the ride vehicle you'll be in, and it's basically kind of a bus. Have you guys seen the art of this thing? Or
Yeah, it looks very much similar to the Kong vehicle.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, just to double back to the Kong attraction for a little bit, Skull Island. We were supposed to get, 5 different hosts for that attraction. In fact, if you're in the queue, you occasionally hear the voice of the female sort of host, and they've never been able to bring that vehicle online, the one that was supposed to be hosted by the female, because they've been using the parts from that vehicle to keep the other vehicles up and running.
Right.
Okay, November 4th of this year, we had our very last Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure, which was, made a lot of people very sad. The fact it was honestly my favorite part of Halloween Horror Night, because it, was usually this really funny, brilliant send-up of what had happened in pop culture this year. But the hard reality is that the Wild Wild West Theater, where Bill and Ted is staged, is where Diagon Alley is looking to expand out to. And if they're going to bump out the borders of this part of the Wizarding World, that show had to go away. So,
well, I've had that conversation on Twitter with a few people, and I've been told that I'm mad for saying that that's what's going to happen there. But I know, Jim, we had a conversation with you when Diagon Alley first opened, when you got a chance to go in before it opened, and you said that if you look through a certain section of Diagon Alley, there's big double doors that go straight through into that area.
Yeah, in fact, if you're, I can tell you exactly where they are. If you watch the Celestine Warbeck show, to the right of the stage, there is a space that looks like a solid wall. That's actually a set of double doors that they can kick open, and it's where the cleaning equipment, everything comes in at the end of the night. And I was lucky to be in there one night prior to opening, where they just sort of threw open the doors, and it's a clear shot straight down to that theater. And more to the point, when you look at the crowds in Diagon Alley, that clearly, just like what just happened over at Hogsmeade, to give, to expand the footprint of that, to give, another 1,000 or 2,000 people something to do in that part of the land. That's Universal's ultimate goal here. Okay, and as we mentioned, November 6th, we got a reveal about what was being built at Wet n Wild. Again, those hotels don't come online till 2019. But the big news again was later that same month, November 18th, we got our long in development Christmas at the Wizarding World Harry Potter, which you guys got in there, right? Or to see the decorations or that sort of thing, all the story driven, creator driven stuff.
Unfortunately, not. Darren, did you get there?
I did not go. No.
Chris, you did though, didn't you?
Think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because so much of it was literally driven by, for example, if you went to the Quidditch supply shop, for example, the wreath outside had, faux snitches in it, or if you went to the owlry, the stuff was decorated, with owl feathers. In fact, to be honest, my favorite was if you went to Gringotts, and they had just bare pine boughs over, decorating the outside of the building, basically because the goblins, they didn't want to spend the client's money on any decorations.
I love it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So it's just sort of like, that's it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also got the new holiday parade featuring Macy's with 15 brand new floats and more than a dozen balloons. I mean, they'd been working on that for 2 solid years, and it was a great effort. Really, put a new, and the 1-2 punch of Christmas time at Harry Potter, and that really gave people a reason to circle back to their park. They literally just were recording this on the 8th.
Yep.
So just yesterday they shut down their first run of this stuff, and my understanding they'll be back both the parade and Christmas time bigger and better in 2018. And our final little chunk, and again, to give you some idea of how Universal is eyeballing what Disney does and wants to get into that business, we saw the launch of character dining over on Marvel Superhero Island. You can go to Cafe 4 and share a breadstick with Cat. Again, the irony is this is doing as well. It's really a popular choice, but that's largely on the back of Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe movies.
Yeah.
So, but hell, that Universal's perfectly happy to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that brings us to the end of 2017, and now we pivot to 2018. And, obviously the 2 big things on the horizon are the opening of the Ventura Hotel, which is supposed to be August of this year. But at the same time, I guess you guys were saying it looks like it's really far along at this point. Or?
Yeah,
it does.
Last time I saw it, it looked way more than halfway complete.
Yeah. Well, that's. I'm going to be intrigued to see how this works out, because I don't know how many of you drive when you come to visit Universal Orlando. Because that chunk of property, if you make a mistake, if you miss a driveway, you're out on I-4.
Oh
yeah.
And
Wow.
the adventure. Well, I mean, the literally, you if you drive by the entrance to Cabana Bay or Sapphire Falls, you suddenly don't have a whole lot of options, and you are suddenly out on 4 headed to Disney. Which means you kind of have to get off at Sand Lake Road and hit reset. It's and I just wonder, in this world where all of us are relying on our iPhones or GPSs to tell us when to turn, how many tries people are gonna have to make to get into that hotel.
Especially people coming from the UK. Like, if people are coming over who've never driven in the US before, it is a daunting task. I know from the first few times we came over, and it is confusing because you're having to deal with being on the wrong side of the car, on the wrong side of the road, and the sign, like all the road signs being different. I can imagine it'll happen quite a lot.
Yeah, I want that one to work because, again, it's supposed to have a absolutely spectacular view not only into Volcano Bay, but also, I guess, the one facing into the resort, that you have this killer view of both islands and City Walk. And the other one, I really want Fast and Furious Supercharged to be a success, but having seen the Fast and Furious finale in California, at the end of the tram tour there, it's a lot of build-up for an illusion that didn't necessarily work, at least with the actual physical tram, the thing they've had there since '64. But my understanding is Theory Coop and that bunch, that they've rejiggered the ride, that there's a lot more show scenes, and particularly given that you get to wander into the garage and see 15 of the cars from the Fast and Furious series and pose next to them and that sort of thing. If you're a fan of the movies, this will be a fun experience.
Yeah.
But it's still, again, I'm just going into it with some trepidation because of the fact that the first iteration of this didn't necessarily work in California. I mean, from a construction point of view, it's amazing. I mean, they have, these giant wraparound screens where there are no visible supports for them. I mean, they just tower up around you and in front of you. And, from an engineering side of things, it's a stunning achievement. It's just not all that entertaining. And I really want for Florida for them to have fixed that problem, to make this entertaining again.
I think it's just another one of those things, Jim. Like, one of the things we've heard a lot of, and we've experienced it ourselves, going over and spending an entire week on Universal property, that fatigue of going from one screen-based attraction to another screen-based attraction to another screen-based attraction, it gets old very quickly.
Yeah, but the irony is, think about it. Everyone talks about, how wonderful Pandora, is. And let's be completely honest, the what is it? The River Adventure is one AA figure.
Yeah.
And and a bunch of screens. And and if you get totally cold-blooded about Flights of Passage, same thing. You get the one AA figures that's in a giant water bath, and then you're looking at a screen. I mean, that is kind of the way the theme park world goes now. Yeah. And it's sometimes it just seems unfair to me that Universal gets knocked for, it's like, oh, you do nothing but screens. And it's like, have you been paying attention to what Disney's doing?
I think the thing is, though, with Disney is they've still got a lot of their old attractions that still are animatronic based, whereas Universal are getting rid of those things now and replacing them with screen based attractions.
As well. Don't forget, Disney have a lot.
I understand why they do it, because it's all, it's an operational thing. When you're ramming so many people through your theme parks, you want those rides to remain operational as long as possible. So I understand why they do it.
We need some waterboat rides over Universal.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you guys. I mean, over here in the States, over the last 3 weeks, all anyone can talk about is, the Trump animatronic. It's fascinating. Oh, I wish the rides had animatronics. Like, really? See,
yeah, but can we not mix that Trump animatronic with Men in Black? Where you get to go around and shoot the Trump animatronics. That would be good.
Again, you said that, I didn't. Just in case the U.S. Secret Service is listening
That's
in.
Fine.
Okay,
I'm from the UK. I'm not from the US, so I can say that's fine.
Okay, well, they can get on both planes. I'm just saying. All right. But anyway, I mean, that's pretty much where we are right now with Universal. I mean, we saw all these pieces move around the table. We had Terminator 2 3D shutdown. We had Dragon Challenge. We see them getting, and Bill and Ted. So we see them getting pieces of real estate ready for new things.
Yeah.
And given the timetable, it really is not a coincidence that we're seeing a lot of these things getting ready in 2019, 2020, and out ahead of Disney's 50th anniversary in 2021. And Disney. Look, Universal understands that when Galaxy's Edge opens, in 2019 in at Walt Disney World. And remember, it looks like right now the Anaheim version will open in the early spring. The Florida version will open sometime that summer. The center of gravity is going to change. It's going to be Wizarding World all over again. So Universal needs some really tempting things to sort of counterbalance that. And so don't be surprised if, the first of the Nintendo lands, pops open, or the first big mega rides open. But honestly, what I keep hearing over and over again is a lot of the Nintendo stuff is now being designated for those 570 acres that are up by the convention center. So we're gonna
I like that.
Yeah, I do as well. But it's one of these things where you have two giant corporations who are doing battle right now for your theme park dollar. And, Universal, as I understand it, is waiting to see what Disney announces so it can then counterpunch.
Yeah.
And that's going to be half the fun of 2018, when these things get revealed and what, what Universal rolls out in this theme park arms race. All right. Anyway, so that's looking at 2017 and ahead to 2018, 2019, 20. And, and the best side is we win.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Absolutely right.
I was talking to someone yesterday. Without Universal building the Wizard World of Harry Potter, Disney becomes stagnant. So Star Wars Edge, Galaxy's Edge is their response to that, and then at some point Universal's going to counteract that, and then it's going to keep going backwards and forwards. And like you say, the people visiting Orlando all the time are the ones that are going to be the winners in all of this, and it is an exciting time to be a fan of those parks.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, competition definitely drives innovation there.
Yeah.
It's just a shame poor SeaWorld's getting left behind.
Well, that they've got a freshwater thrill ride opening this year that hopefully will move the dial. But and let's remember we got the virtual reality Kraken Unleashed last year, which was pretty impressive. In fact, both Universal and Disney sent people over to eyeball that attraction. So don't be surprised if both Universal and Disney end up with their own virtual rides. But hey, you didn't hear that from me.
I want to see, because I know the Star Wars Void experience is open to Disney Springs. I've spoken to someone who knows one of the guys who's behind the Void, and that sounds just mind-blowingly amazing. And I wish Universal, that's what a lot of people were hoping the repository was going to be at Halloween Horror Nights. To put something like that in City Walk, we've talked about it quite a lot on the show, that City Walk's become a food destination now, and it needs, they've got the mini golf, you've got the cinema, it needs something else to get people in other than just food. And I think something like that, because I know they've done a Ghostbusters one, so to do a Ghostbusters Void attraction in City Walk would go down an absolute storm.
Well, again, that as of right now, this is what how City Walk has been repositioned. And remember that we are only 2 and 3 years out from them having completed it, that giant redo, what with the NBC Sports Place and Tootsums, and so I would honestly be surprised to see them circle back on that anytime soon. But again, this is Universal, and what they do well is surprise us. So let's see what happens.
So we haven't talked about the Element skate shop that's closed, that apparently is going to be a Voodoo Donuts.
I hope so.
All right. Well, I'm speaking on behalf of all the diabetics out there. It's like kind of a look, don't touch situation. But I'll let Nancy know. Voodoo Donuts. Who knew?
Awesome.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Jim. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. And for those people listening, don't know that we've had some major technical difficulties, but
yes, and I apologize for the poor person who's got to attack this show with a machete. So just hoping there's something coherent at the other end. But again, guys, thank you so much for inviting me on, and hopefully we can do this again sometime when, I'm not wearing my tinfoil hat. So, alrighty.
Brilliant. Right, well, that's going to wrap up episode 282 again. You know, the next few years at Universal are going to be... It is going to be a whirlwind, and it is going to be exciting, and we will be here to cover it. So stay tuned. So, of course, for Jim, don't forget you can check out Jim. Jim, where can people find you?
These days, Huffington Post. I do the podcast with Len Testa, Disney Dish. We've also just started up a show called Marvel Us Disney, which is about the Marvel side of Disney. I do that one with Aaron Adams, and actually talking about getting a Lucasfilm podcast going. God help me. So we'll see. That's I guess I'll be spending most of 2018 behind a mic that doesn't work.
Awesome, cool. As I said, that's going to wrap up the show. So for Tracy, Darren, Chris, and Jim, this has been episode 282, and we will see you back here next week.
Cut. Print. That's a wrap for another episode of the Unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. Never miss a show by subscribing on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review while you're there. Not an Apple user? You can listen on Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, or your podcatcher of choice. Email us any questions or comments to podcast@uuopodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest. Just search UUO Podcast. Keep up with the latest news, rumors, and updates on our blog at uuopodcast.com. Thanks for listening. See you next week.